Good evening. It is Sunday, and once again, as has been the habit, let's look back at the week we just completed and look ahead to what we have. This week was pretty interesting. I really enjoyed the I don't know if I want to say arguments, but there were some real lively conversations about what is a player worth. And it didn't dawn on me until I was reading your post on that very subject, that a current topic in sports, and it's much more to do with the business of sports than pure sport itself, is the reality of fantasy leagues and fantasy sports. Now, I'm not a fantasy sports player. Maybe I'm just a little too old. I like to say to people, I don't get it. I don't understand the phenomena. I don't mean that I don't understand the workings of it. It just doesn't have the appeal to me that it does to apparently an awful lot of people. I do understand that appeal. It has gotten a lot more people to watch games, to watch more games, to have fun, to feel like a participant. An awful lot of money changes hands. It's a real factor. But the one thing I thought of as I was reading everybody's post this week is that fantasy sport actually sort of offers us kind of a polling system. Especially the concept of daily fantasy sports. We kind of get a polling on who's worth how much to their team every week. It's like a big vote. Money flocks to different places, and we see that, and we see how people think. And it's really interesting when we looked at all the factors that went into determining player compensation. Yes, most of us we think it's outrageous, but when you really look at the numbers and you look at what's there, it's really interesting to see how sport has kept up with other fields of entertainment. And really, I think in the end, it talks to us about a very interesting subject. What is sport? What is industry does sport belong to? Is it its own industry, or is it a subset of the entertainment industry? When you are watching sports, what are you not watching? The obvious answer is something else. I really even looked at it with my on-campus class this week. We started talking about how in some cases we can look at minor league sports, and one of the discussions was, well, major league sports compete with each other, they compete with major forms of entertainment. We were talking about pricing and ticket pricing and things like that, and the discussion swung over to the fact that, well, minor league sports like minor league baseball at its price points seems to compete with, I don't know, going to the movies. So, the whole idea of what's it worth, what do we do, why are players compensated so much? Well, why are television performers, movie actors, rock stars, why are they compensated so much? It's kind of the same phenomenon that you see in sports, right? The other thing that was really interesting to me last week was, of course, reading and doing the grading on your midterm papers, which were they were a little bit more split than usual as to whether people wanted to go after that last playoff spot or go after the lottery pick. The reason, too, that I chose basketball to do this is basketball as being the smaller roster amongst the major sports, and the game being played by 5 people on the floor. One impact player, one superstar, can make more of a difference than, say, to a football team, where it's 1 out of 11, we're at 1 out of 5. And as I said, the results seem to be fairly split equally, not quite equally, a little bit more towards people wanting to go for the playoff spot. It was very easy for us to slip out of the economic analysis for a while, but most of you got it back and looked at it from that point of view. And I did promise that I would give you the answer we got from the actual NBA owner. And long story short, it's a sport economics student in the on-campus class a few years ago, right after we had first put this assignment together, happened to be on a flight, got bumped up to first class, sat next to a gentleman named Ted Leonsis, who owned the Washington Wizards. Wizards, is that what they are now? I always still want to call them the Bullets. And the Washington Capitals in the NHL. And Mr. Leonsis was talking to this young man who was a pitcher on the post baseball team. And my student told him about the exam. And Ted Leonsis just said, wow, that's an interesting question and a good question. So I've been flattered by that for a few years, and maybe caused me to continue to use it. But what he told our player was that it depended on which team he was talking about as to what his answer would be. And it was very interesting. He said with the hockey team, it would have been definitely to try to get the draft pick, because the draft pick meant more in building the culture of the team, building the culture of the fan base. It was a different fan base he was looking at, and felt that the longer term results were more important in hockey. In basketball, he definitely thought the move at that point would be to get the playoff berth, because of all the factors that the weighted lottery said, if you're the 8th team in or the 9th team out, you know what, you got about the same chance of getting the same player. So what if in the 8th team in you're not in the lottery? If you're the 9th team in, if you're the first team out, you're so weighted away from getting one of the top 3 picks, it's not going to happen, or you can't plan on it happening. And what he was more concerned was the marketing advantages and somewhat of the advantages that he saw in free agency of being able to push into the playoffs, maybe do some damage. Wasn't too concerned with the revenue you'd get from a short playoff run, but from the marketing and competitive sides, he thought that was more the way to go. Is there any way to say he's absolutely right, or that those of you who wanted to go and get the draft pick were right? No, there isn't. Time will tell in any situation. But it's an interesting question, and one I thought was worth asking. Now, this week we're going to move into a subject that you've seen in just about every sport management class you've had, and we need to talk about Title IX. And what has it meant to college sports in particular, but in sport in general? How has it affected it? I'm the parent of two young ladies who became high school and college athletes. They probably would not have had those opportunities without Title IX. I coach men's and women's tennis, and let me tell you, the factors of balancing your Title IX opportunities and requirements are somewhat tricky, and it's a real factor in how we manage and coach at the college level. So there is a lot of material. I have material for you that is from both proponents and opponents of Title IX, and we'd really like you to look at that critically and have the same high quality discussion you've been having. Also this week, you'll notice there is a long section on preparing you for the final assignment, which doesn't, of course, come up until next week, but we're trying to prepare you for it. And one of the things, too, I will amend it. I may not get to it tonight, but may get to it tomorrow. It asks you to start looking for information, choosing an entity that you can work with. There's a list there for you to choose from. But essentially, you're preparing a major consultants report to go to a major sporting entity, a league, a national association, and the one I'm going to add is, or perhaps an Olympic committee, and trying to get the concept of hosting the Olympic Games. And I throw that back in because we just saw a few months ago Brazil, and that was a controversial choice, controversial run-up to its preparation. How well did it or did it not come off? What its legacy is going to be, we can't tell yet. But these are all really major economic considerations. So I really want you to read that prep section, ask any questions you have, and let's really get started so that you're not rushing to do everything next week. So once again, the discussion last week was really good. I now have stopped saying, wow, this is this can't go on. You guys have kept it up for 6 weeks now. These are some of the best discussion boards I have had in total in any class I've ever taught. And the quality is there, the ideas are there, the exchange is there, and I think the learning is there. and I've been able to just ask a question and maybe jump in a couple of times and ask a few more, or redirect something, or ask you to think about something in a different way. And you folks have taken off and run with it, and I couldn't be happier with it. So with 2 more weeks to go, all I can say is keep it up. We need to get that done. We need to keep it at that level through the end, and you show no signs of slowing down. For that, I'm very happy and very grateful. So thanks for all your hard work. I hope that if any questions come up, you feel free to ask me. It's going to be, I think, an interesting last 2 weeks, as it's been one interesting first 6. And with that, I'll say goodnight and wish you well for the coming week.